Hello, welcome, and welcome back to my podcast. Today, I want to talk about procrastination and how it caused anxiety. But before we dive into that topic, I want to start today's episode by sharing a story that really motivated me a while ago. I wanted to get in shape and physically prepare myself for a trip to Europe with my husband. I wanted to walk more without feeling tired, and I knew I needed to run more and get stronger. I dance sometimes, which helps a bit, but honestly, I just couldn't get myself to the gym. Every day, I felt too tired to go. Then one day, I heard a story that helped me move my ass. I met with a friend who I go to dance classes with regularly, and he shared with me how he spent a month in Thailand. So basically, he joined a boxing club, and every single day he woke up, ran 5 miles on a hill, and then took boxing classes, and finally he went to Pilates. I know it sounds intense, and I'm not saying anybody should copy it, because obviously don't do anything that's too extreme for your physical health. But what I'm trying to say is, just by hearing his story, lit a spark in me. It has been a month since I've heard the story, and I kept that routine for 4 weeks already. I definitely feel a lot better and more energized physically. The reason I wanted to share this story is because how my friend's story literally changed my routine, and I couldn't do it myself for so long. But all it took was just some motivation. So now I can truly see how powerful motivation can be. And that's exactly why I wanted to record today's episode. Sometimes all we need is a little push to take the first step. Today, I want to be that motivation for you. I know if you're listening, the chances are you feel stuck and maybe you feel anxious about your situation. But here's what I've realized. It's not always the anxiety that starts the cycle. It begins with procrastination. You told yourself, I'll start tomorrow, I'll wait until I feel ready, but the longer you wait, the heavier it feels, and the more anxious you become. And then perfectionism jumps in, whispering that if it's not going to be flawless, maybe you shouldn't even try. That's how procrastination, anxiety, and perfectionism feed off each other and keep us paralyzed. I've been there myself. When I thought about starting this podcast, my mind was full of self-criticism. What if I'm not good enough? What if somebody else out there, more qualified, has already said everything I wanted to say? And the truth is, yes, there will always be people who are more established, but that doesn't mean your voice doesn't matter. If anything, waiting only makes the gap wider. What actually gets rid of that anxiety is starting, meaning putting something out there, even if it's imperfect. So let's talk about how to break this cycle and move forward. I have 4 things that really help. The first thing I wanted to share with you is this. Stop imagining people's criticism in your head. I assure you, at least for me, this is the first and the biggest reason that held me back. You know, in the past, when I'm about to do something, it was like having a group of invisible audiences in my head, and they are just ready to judge every little thing I do. If it took too long for me to figure out something, the voice in my head would say, wow, it took you so long to figure out such an easy piece. I cannot imagine how long it would take for you to do something bigger. Whoa, I'm really mean to myself, isn't it? But here's the truth. Everybody makes mistakes. It's part of being human. If you make a mistake, just correct it and apologize. Sometimes, especially if you have worked in a high-pressure environment, like being a lawyer or having a corporate job, well, at least I got that a lot when I was working at a law firm. I remember once, I had literally one typo in a 20-page long document, and my boss yelled at me and said I couldn't even manage a small task. And this shouldn't be the mistake that happened to somebody who has a law degree. I really hope this had never happened to you. But if you were ever in this type of toxic work environment, chances are you get conditioned to believe that even the tiniest mistake, like a typo, is unacceptable. And over time, that trains you to think that the whole world is waiting to pronounce on your mistakes. At least that was what happened to me. Every time I release something, even something not work related, I just kind of assume somebody would think I sound stupid and waiting for criticizing me. But you know, you have to remember that is not the reality. Well, most people are way too focused on their own problems. They focus on their own insecurities and their own challenges. At the end of the day, they wouldn't even focus on your performance. And you know why some people got really mad at those tiniest mistakes? Because They are insecure about themselves. For example, the boss who yelled at me for a typo that I just mentioned, I later found out that he was actually really terrible at doing his job. I cannot really elaborate here, but he was just really projecting his insecurities to his colleague. So when I look back, I realized it was never about me. The criticism direct to me was really never about me. It wasn't that I was this horrible person who couldn't do anything right, who couldn't do the easiest thing right. He was just taking it all out on me. I'm not saying you should stop treating your obligations seriously though, but what I'm trying to say is, instead of taking it personally or imagining the whole world is waiting to criticize you, please remember most people out there are too busy dealing with their own mess, and they have no brain space to obsess over your mistakes. And here's the truth, even if your work isn't perfect, it still matters. It's worth putting your work out there, even if one person could benefit from it. Maybe your words encourage somebody who feels stuck. Maybe your idea helps someone make progress. Maybe your story reminds someone that they're not the only one going through that in the world. So instead of thinking about the critics, start visualizing the one person who actually needs what you're creating. You know, when I created this podcast, the old me would be visualizing a group of people saying, "Oh, her words are so useless. I just don't understand why somebody would comment on something that's so obvious, so irrelevant." But hey, I know there's someone out there who would resonate with my words in the exact moment they need to hear it. I just know there's someone doing their corporate job but suffering so much from the burnout and anxiety, and my words are the exact encouragement they need to take the next step or even the leap of faith. And if even one of you feels a little less alone and a little more inspired, then it's worth it. That's the image I choose to picture now. Let's ditch the imaginary critics, but the real human beings on the other side who's waiting for this message. So next time you feel those imaginary critics, remind yourself they're not real. What's real is the impact you can make. Focus on that one person who needs you. The next thing I want to remind you is this. It's never too late to start something, and you're never too small to begin. When I started this podcast, I caught myself thinking, well, there are so many people who are already talking about personal growth and self-help. Who am I to add my voice? Someone else out there is already more qualified to talk about this. And there are so many people are established, and a lot has started years ago. So why should I even try? So to be honest, I actually recorded 3 episodes a year ago, but I never released them because back then I was like, what's the point of posting it? But one day I was speaking to a friend and she was suffering from anxiety. I offered her my perspective and I talked to her about how to reframe the mindset and look at what's going on in her life in a brand new way. And she was like, whoa, you're so good. You should let more people hear it. And I thought about my podcast. And then I just remembered the reason I loved a lot of things. Like my favorite podcast, or like songs written by Taylor Swift. Yes, they talk about their breakups, their relationships, and sure, there are so many people creating arts and songs related to those topics, but I still resonate with them so much. They alchemized it into their form of art. So all of a sudden, it hits me that I don't need to be the first person talking about something to make it meaningful or special. I don't need to be the first ever person talking about breakups or coping with anxiety as a corporate girl, because the world doesn't need just one voice, it needs many voices, and your perspective might be exactly what someone else needed to hear right now. So, this is your daily dose of motivation. Just start doing it. Doing whatever you envision for yourself. Don't wait until you feel like you're ready or when you're perfect. Because, let's be real, you'll never feel ready. You'll always find the small things to improve or feeling like you're not good enough to compete with other people. But, it's never a competition to begin with, and your unique voice is good enough. Plus, this doesn't have to be huge to make it meaningful. And when you're practicing it, you will improve way faster than just sitting there and thinking about how to improve in your head. I wanted to actually pause and write down the answer to the questions. What's the passion project you have been putting off? What's the thing that's been sitting there in the back of your mind? Write it down, even if it's small. I mean, of course, you could think about it in your head, but you're more likely to to actually do it if you write it down. So do it. And hey, if you want to share, I'd love to hear about it. You can send me a DM on Instagram. You can find the links in the show notes. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, great. I wrote it down, but I'm not ready to show it to anyone. What if it's terrible? What if it's embarrassing? And I get it, because that used to be me too. I never wanted anyone to see my work until I feel comfortable. And this naturally leads to the next point I want to talk about, which is reframing perfectionism and just submit the first draft. Okay, let's talk about perfectionism. I used to live in that mindset. I would spend forever polishing something, reworking every little piece, and in the end, I either didn't share it at all or I delayed so long that the excitement was completely gone. Just like the podcast, I spent so much time. I think I've drafted more than 5 episodes and eventually recorded 3 episodes, but I never shared it. And by the way, the episodes that I do release that are available right now are not those 3 episodes. I've actually deleted those. It's gone forever. It was like I spent probably 50 hours on this and for nothing. Why did I do that? Honestly, that's what perfectionism does. It disguises itself as high standards, but really, it's just fear. Fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough. When I thought about releasing my podcast, I was so afraid that nobody would listen. And the most important thing is, I was afraid that my content isn't good enough to be heard. But it is normal that your first draft isn't perfect, and that's okay because nobody's first draft is. There's a reason it's called a first draft. Whether you're writing a book, starting a new business, creating a podcast episode, or even drafting an email, the point of the first draft is to exist. That's it. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be a starting point, and you will build something meaningful on top of that. And here's something else I've learned. Most people aren't even looking for your work to be perfect. They are looking for something real, something useful, and something they can connect with. I used to think, what if someone hear my podcast and thinks it's immature or too simple? But then, after I released my first few episodes, a friend of mine sent me a message and he said my podcast is really good and those topics are something he and his friends talk about and care about a lot, and he was happy to hear more about it. In that moment, I realized if I had waited until it was perfect, I would never know about this. I would probably still be sitting with my drafts and my recordings, thinking about they're awful. So here's my challenge for you. Whatever project you have been sitting on, just commit to make the messy first version. Don't polish it. Don't try to make it flawless. Just create it. That's your only job. Because the sooner you let go of the idea of perfectionism, the sooner you actually build momentum. And that's what gets you moving forward. So yes, forget about making it perfect. Just get that messy first draft out there. But even when you let go of the perfectionism, sometimes you can still feel stuck. And why? Because you're staring at this giant to-do list, or you don't even know where to start. Then we need a different approach. By saying a different approach, I mean sometimes you just need to map out the 1 or 2 immediate actions. I love planning, honestly, on top of being a lawyer, which already requires so much planning and organizing. I run an Etsy shop that sells productivity and planning tools. So it's probably very obvious how much I enjoy making lists and organizing my ideas. But usually before I start something, I am the type of person who will Google all the steps, or now I'll even ask ChatGPT to make a full to-do list for me, and then I'll customize it. However, it is so easy to be intimidated by the huge to-do list. At least before I started this podcast, I saw how much preparation I need to have before launching it, like buying a microphone, learn how to use the editing software, writing the scripts, doing show notes. It felt so overwhelming, and trust me, when I saw the steps I need to do before launching my podcast, I was like, I might well just not do it, because there's no way I'm going to finish checking off every items on that to-do list. Or maybe you're the polar opposite. Maybe you hate planning, but you run into the same issue, right? Because if you have no idea where to start, the chances of you actually doing anything are pretty low. So here's what I've learned. Instead of trying to tackle everything at once, just pick 1 or 2 immediate actions. That's it. Not 10, not 20, not not the whole damn to-do list, just one or two. For me, with the podcast, it was simple. I'll write the notes and then record a first episode. That's it. Everything else could come later. And the crazy thing is, once you check off these tiny steps, you feel momentum. You'll be like, okay, I did that. What's next? And little by little, those steps add up without making you feel like you have to quit before you even started. So, if you got a big passion project sitting in the back of your mind, don't ask, what's everything I need to do? Ask instead, what's the one or two things I can do today to move this forward? Because once you start moving, even just a little bit, that anxiety starts to shrink. And that's how you build confidence and energy, by taking actions in small, doable steps. Before we wrap up, I just want to acknowledge something very important. I know that sometimes it's not about procrastination or perfectionism. Sometimes you're just exhausted, emotionally drained, or dealing with a burnout. On those days, the best thing you can do for yourself isn't to push harder, it's to rest, recover, and give yourself time to recharge. And that's it for today's episode. I hope this conversation gave you the push you needed to take one more step towards your passion. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or share with a friend who might need this reminder too. And if you like more personal support in handling anxiety, you can always book a one-on-one coaching session with me. The link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I'll see you in the next episode.